Hi everyone! Today we're going to design a calendar page together based on some insights that I've gotten from my best-selling calendar. We're going to go through the whole process from sketch to finished calendar page so that you can see what it takes to design a calendar. I'm Liz Kohler Brown. I'm a service designer and hand letterer who loves helping people find their style and sell their work. I've been selling my calendars on Etsy and locally for a couple of years, so I've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't work, and I'm going to share some of that with you as we draw together. And then coming soon on the channel will be a video about my calendar sales and strategy so you can learn more about how to sell your calendar. So let's dive right into drawing together. So I want to start out here by showing you my best-selling calendar page ever, and I know this because it was the winning thumbnail out of a lot of different images that I tested on Etsy. So I think what's so bold about this that really stands out online is these big, bold pops of color mixed with the lettering being really clear. So it's a big highlight on the lettering with some bold pops of color and then a little variation. So I'm going to try to incorporate that into every page of this new calendar so that I'm taking into account all those things that I've learned about calendar sales. So next, I'm going to be pulling from my vintage botanical Pinterest board, and I'm going to share this with you guys so you can have access to this board as well. So I'd recommend just taking a minute to screenshot a couple of things that are interesting to you. Now, of course, you don't have to do a botanical calendar. You can do a cat's calendar, coffee calendar, dog calendar, maybe something local, something like the local plants of your area. That would be a really good way to market to local people. So whatever that inspiration is that you need to make this calendar, go ahead and screenshot that. Then I'm going to head into Procreate. And, I want to say here, I know a lot of people don't know exactly what format their calendar is going to be yet. So what I would recommend is just doing some kind of cute spot image. That is maybe approximately a square, maybe a little bit more of a rectangle. The orientation here is going to depend on what you decide to go with for your calendar orientation. I share all of those ideas inside my calendars class. So if you're like, I don't know what orientations there even are, I show examples. I ordered prints of all of them, so you guys don't have to wonder. Remember, you can watch that class with a free trial to my membership, so you don't have to pay anything to watch that class right now if you just want to dive straight in. But for now, I would say just make an image that's somewhat rectangular, make it in a large size so that you can size it up or down if you need to. I'm going to start with my lettering because I really think the lettering is the most important part of this. So I'll go ahead and mark myself a space here. I can't go below this space because that's where my numbers are going to be. And I want to stay within this sort of pink border. I just randomly made this border for myself to keep myself away from the edge. It doesn't have to be exactly like this, you guys. So let's start by grabbing the sketching pencil, and I'm using my Everything Bagel brush set. All of the brushes that I use today will be from that set. And I'm going to start out by just doing my lettering. I don't use lettering guides at all. I just draw my letters how I want them to be. So feel free to follow me and do that. So let's start with playing around with some lettering ideas. I'm going to do cursive. You guys don't have to do cursive. You could do really any type of lettering style, I would say, as long as it's consistent throughout your calendar, you're doing great. So I sort of like these M's that come down like this. And this is where you can really start exploring your lettering style. Like, what kind of letters do you like? Maybe make an inspiration board of some vintage lettering styles that you find. I love looking at like vintage signs and advertisements. I have books that are just full of vintage lettering styles that I pull from. So I do recommend that. But of course, in the end, you need to just kind of do your own thing. So I'm going to put this lettering up in either the bottom corner or the top corner. My last calendar, it was in the top corner. So I'm sort of thinking, what if we do something different and put it in the bottom corner this time? So that's something to consider. Another thing to consider would be to put it in the middle and let the botanical elements weave in and out. So you might duplicate this doc and do a few different versions so that you really get an opportunity to play with various ideas. I think what I'll do for this one is put the May in the middle, and then we'll have different vines snaking around. I think the key here when you're thinking about designing calendars is like the number one focus is on the month, right? We need to know the month of the year, which is May. But the number two focus is on beautiful art, right? We want it to be eye-catching. We want it to be bold for our viewers. So I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about how is this going to show up on a thumbnail where I'm selling my art, which for me, it happens to be on Etsy. So I'm thinking about what's that thumbnail going to look like? How is it going to stand out from all the other thumbnails? For me, that's going to be bold, funky lettering, a pop of color. These flowers are going to really pop. The leaves are going to be super funky and loose and wavy. But I need to be thinking about all that stuff, even though I'm nowhere close to like ordering a print and taking pictures of this. It all comes into play. So playing around with like really distinct leaves, like wavy, things that really will catch the viewer's eye, like, ooh, look at all that fluidity. Look how much fluid nature is all over this page. People are going to notice that when they look at the image. So I'm going to continue this process, doing my sketching, rough shapes, just getting those rough shapes down on the page. And then we're going to do a little bit more of a refined sketch and then ink this. So I'll meet you at the refined sketch stage. So I feel pretty good about my rough sketch. I'm going to create a new layer above those and make it semi-transparent, and this is going to be my final sketch. So all of that, the whole point of that part of the process is just to know that everything has a place on the page. I know I can refine stuff here and there, but I really need to know that everything has its place. And I'll also go through and on this rough sketch layer, I'll just thicken all these vines. You know, sometimes we don't leave space for the thickness of things, and then we get to the inking stage and we're like, oh, running out of space here. So I like to go through, this is the rough inking brush that I'm using from the Everything Bagel brush set, which is right below this video as a free download. And just adding in that thickness, that looseness. I'm not trying to make this super refined. I'm trying to keep that like sketchy, real feel. And I mean, you guys know with AI right now, the roughness and looseness of the real human hand is becoming more valuable. So lean into the looseness. Things don't have to be perfect anymore. That was like an early phase of digital art, everything being perfect, and now it's all about being messy. So I feel like I'm pretty good at being messy. I'm going to reduce the opacity of that sketch, and now we are going into refined sketch mode. Starting out with the lettering, because lettering is the essential part of this composition, right? It's all about the lettering here. So that's where I'm starting. I'm getting my dual pencil brush from the Everything Bagel brush set. Why I love this brush is because it's got this built-in sketched thickness to it. So it makes it really easy to build letters quickly. I've got my lettering style that's kind of like a rounded feel. So I'm trying to keep this circle, soft, fluid, rounded feel to my lettering. Again, not trying to make this perfect, not trying to be a machine here. I'm trying to be human. So let there be some mistakes. Let there be some wonkiness to your letters. I think you'll find that your viewers find it sweet and real. So there's the first part of my sketch. Now we can go through and do the rest of the refining. So You guys know how to draw leaves and flowers. I know that, but I am going to just show you a little trick that I use, which is go to the writing pencil. The sketching pencil has some streamline to it, so it helps you smooth things out. The writing pencil does not. It is loose, it is rough, and if you hold your pencil, your stylus, whatever you're using, loosely, you can make really pretty rough shapes. So, you know, when I first started drawing flowers, it would be like loop, loop, loop. That's one way of drawing flowers, but I do think that the loose and rough style is really in right now. So if you like that style, that's what I would suggest. So I'm going to repeat the same process with my flowers, my leaves, and then we're ready to ink this baby. So I feel pretty good about that sketch. I'm going to make my first sketch invisible and then reduce the opacity of all these sketch layers. And this is where I like to start a new document, because for me, it gets a little confusing when I want to save sketch layers and all the other parts of my calendar images, and sometimes I like to share those parts. So I like to just start clean, and then I can just merge all of these layers. The only thing I'm not going to merge, let's delete that random circle that I drew, but everything else I'm going to put all in the same layer, so it's just really easy for me to see what I need to see and create one layer below that. So of course you can do that in a different way, but I just wanted to show you guys how I like to share my files. So I'm going to grab my rough inking brush from the Everything Bagel brush set, and I'm going to go through keeping my theme that I told you guys, which is rough and loose. And I also kind of decided as I was sketching that I'm going to overlap the lettering a little bit. Like sometimes my flowers or my leaves are going to just go right into my lettering shapes. So that'll create a little bit of layering, a little bit of playfulness on this composition. So I'll continue the same process, inking each of these layers, and then we'll move on to the next part, which is adding a little bit of detail. Let's take a quick break from drawing for question time. This is a question from Kate Francis Designs. Kate says, I love your tutorials, Liz. Thank you, Kate. Quick question about the artboards for Colorways, and she's talking about Affinity Designer app here. How do you keep the original version? Do you duplicate the whole file and recolor the second version? When I duplicated it on a second artboard, it changed up the colors. I've never had a problem with duplicating files in Affinity Designer, Kate, so I think I would need to see what you're seeing to know what could be going wrong. But what I do is go to the gallery, swipe left, and press the duplicate button. That is how I duplicate to make color versions, and I share my whole process for using Affinity Designer in my Affinity 101 class. So it's a freebie. If you guys want to check it out, it's right below this video. So here we go. We have a inked calendar, and I'm going to go ahead and make all the sketch stuff invisible, create a new layer that's for my detail elements. And this is where we have to decide how much detail we want to do here. So we could go super simple like this, or of course you could do, you know, every single vein. You can go as detailed or as simple as you want. I think the key is to consider the first calendar page like a test. You know, you're gonna ink it in one way and then maybe ink it in a couple other ways and color it in a few ways and give it some time to breathe, give yourself some time to think about it. Then go from there with like, what is my whole calendar gonna look like? I mean, 12 illustrations plus a cover makes it 13. So it's quite a commitment depending on how much time you spend on each illustration. So obviously we want this to be a style that you're super proud of, that you love, that you're going to want to do over and over. So the whole point of this page is to test that out, play with ideas, and then you can go from there with deciding how far you want to go with this. And, you know, do you even want to turn this concept into a calendar? Or maybe there's some other great idea out there waiting for you that you want to discover. So at this point, that's where I'm at. I'm like, okay, make one, take my time to think about what's going to be fun for me, what's going to be sellable, trying to capitalize on what I learned on Etsy in the last couple of years with my calendar sales, which I'm going to be sharing a lot more with you all about that next week. Basically trying to redo that without just copying the calendar again. I don't just want to become a, you know, one-trick pony who makes the same thing over and over, but I don't want to not capitalize on something that is working, obviously. So at this point, I'm going to go through with a few different color concepts. I am thinking that the dark lettering works really well because it just makes the lettering pop. And I'm just tapping hue, saturation, brightness. I'm feeling like a dark color is going to be really bold. Now this is cute. I like this. So if I find something like this that gets me excited, that I'm like, ooh, this could be a really fun calendar to design, I'm going to duplicate the doc, and then any additional changes I do will be on a new document. So we're going to call this a yes, save it for later, duplicate, get a new page, and then maybe we're going to play with color a little bit. So let's tap on the flowers, select hue, saturation, brightness. And what could we do with these flowers to kind of change the whole feel? So this would be more of a pinky blue feel. Let's go to hue, saturation, brightness on the lettering layer. We could go more like green. This is sort of a tropical feel. So there's no right or wrong here, right? It's more about, what do you want to make? Do you want to make a tropical calendar? Do you want to make a vintagey botanical calendar? That's where you have to use your intuition, use your style, and go with what works for you. But I have to say, just first glance, that's definitely a winner for me because it has sort of a vintage feel to it. So my next step would be to put all of my numbers on the page, right? Once I feel that this is a finished calendar page, I'm ready to put my numbers on it. I do that in Affinity Designer. I show the whole process inside my calendar class, which you all can watch with a free trial right now, which you're going to find more about right below this video. So if you're following along, you'll be seeing this new calendar out in the world soon. But for now, you can go to my Etsy shop and see my other calendars if you're looking for an example of what the finished calendar would look like. So I hope you guys had fun drawing that calendar page with me. Please share yours with me on Instagram at Liz Kohler Brown so I can see what you're working on and hear about your calendar ideas. If you liked this video, you might also like my video on how to draw animals and my other video on improving your hand lettering. Both of those are really helpful for creating calendars, so check those out.